Let's turn our attention to the other game, Sydney taking on Collingwood. And if Adelaide are going to be worried about Franklin, well, you know, Sydney are going to be worried about Travis Cloke. And Heath Grundy was the man that played on him last time. Kicked 3 goals, played on him for the entire game, only took 5 marks. So you'd probably say if he keeps him to 5 marks and maybe 3 goals, that's not a bad return from Grundy.
Yeah, and as Rocket said earlier in the show, the Sydney Swans are one of those really well-drilled, structured defences, and so Grundy gets a lot of help. So once again, if Travis Cloke isolates any opponent in a one-on-one situation, he's going to be very, very strong in that marking contest. But that's why the great support from the fellow defenders is going to help Grundy.
Huge role. If it is to be Payne that comes in or Dawes that plays down there, they've got to make sure their opponent is accountable to them as much as what we just spoke about with the previous game with Tippett and Walker. They need to make sure that they can't double team against Cloke, otherwise it's game over.
Yeah, but I think on that ground up there, because it's very narrow, that it suits the defenders. And I think last time we played up there, it was, I don't know, 11 goals to 9 or something like that. It's going to be that sort of game. It's going to be very difficult to get goals, and it's going to be tough for forwards. And I think they've got to work in tandem, because obviously the defenders work in tandem or work in 3, so we've got to be able to do that as well. Well,
Kingy, you mentioned the Dawes role, or whoever plays that role. It's very important that he pushes up at the ball and makes this man, Ted Richards, very accountable. Now, we know Richards is one of the best intercept markers and spoilers in the competition. In this particular game, he wasn't able to get to Cloke to spoil. He didn't spoil one of Cloke's marking contests and only got 1 or maybe 0 intercept marks. So every time the ball came to Dawes, he was a long way away from Cloke, and he was dangerous enough to make sure Richards couldn't drop off. He pushed up the field and made sure that Cloke had plenty of space to himself. Didn't work in Cloke's favour on that occasion, but also didn't really work in Richards' favour with that third up jump.
I think that's a team responsibility, Jace, to make sure that you give him opportunities early so that Richards has to stay on that man, has to stay diligent to his task. If you can get a couple of marks early, then it changes the whole mechanics of the back 6 for Sydney.
If Sydney are going to be in the game, Adam Goodes has got to have a belter. You think it's got to be vintage Goodes to get them over the line.
Yeah, you're right. And Reed's in great form. We saw last weekend, we were showing some highlights earlier in the show of what he's been able to do. Dangerous at stoppages. He's a dangerous player. Yeah. He's a really... I'll tell you what, he's one that caused you a couple of sleepless nights in the build-up to the game, Adam Goodes, because his last game in Adelaide was absolutely fantastic as well.
Yeah, it was. He was the player that turned the game for them. Actually started on a roll, and he started on a wing that day, and he kicked the first 2 goals of the game and one from the wing when he was able to slide forward. So he's got that ability to go into stoppages. Players are forward, players are midfielder, so there's no doubt they'll use him in all roles.
Is it? Oh, sorry, does that mean that one player goes with him, or it could be a multiple of players?
We haven't discussed that, but there's no sense Ben Reid going to a wing if he's the one to play on him. And he played on him last time, but they're going to have Sam Reid in this week, so they're going to go an extra tool to what they had last time.